Today we're looking at IvyKoin. I went to the pre-sale at the Radisson Blu in downtown Sydney recently. It's a pretty fancy hotel and restaurant complex. And there I heard from the IvyKoin team. Remember to click like and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos, and please put a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And when I get enough, I will do a little video responding to all your questions. What is IvyKoin? Well, IvyKoin's a token that will be sold to financial institutions to aid them in transferring money quickly and easily using blockchain technology. IvyKoin is supposed to be a decentralized system, and how IvyKoin will attempt to sell it to financial institutions is that it will be a lot faster than current systems like Swift. So Swift, I recently had a friend try to send me some money from the Netherlands. It took 2 weeks before we realized that the transaction failed and that we had to find alternate methods to transfer money through our institution. So that was really frustrating, and we didn't have visibility on the transaction. So it was annoying. If we'd known, could have used something else. We could have used some cryptocurrency. So what it's hoping to do is supplant something like Swift. And how's it going to be different? Well, they talk about, so we all know about KYC, which is know your customer. So to stop all this dark web activity and anonymity and crime using cryptocurrencies, a lot of exchanges and institutions are using know your customer, KYC protocols to gather that information. Well, they want to add to that with KYT, know your transaction. With their system, they have a lot more metadata, which is information about the transaction associated with that transaction being sent from institution to institution. So here's a table provided by IvyKoin showing the metadata that can be included with a transaction. And Bitcoin's 1 versus Swift, the current banking international transfer system, having 10 metadata fields versus 74 metadata fields from IvyKoin, which is a lot of metadata. And so what they're hoping to do is that you can upload additional information about the transaction, maybe have, an example they said was photos of a cargo container ship, or more information so that the receiving recipient can accept the transaction and finalize the transaction by going through all that metadata and documentation. Here's what IvyKoin had to say about that.
Ripple was never created to solve the problem around data in a transfer. It was created as a system for fast interactions in bank-to-bank settlement, but it wasn't designed because of a problem of banks not getting enough data around deposits. So Ivy is specifically crafted around collecting the right data and securely transmitting it to the bank proactively for each transaction.
So they're hoping to be faster, cheaper, more secure, and remove the anonymity. It's not forgeable, according to them. So with all these benefits, they're hoping that the financial institutions will adopt their token and delivery systems.
When Ripple acquires 10 new banks, the market says, well, fantastic, and people sort of buy up XRP, but what a lot of people don't know is that by and large, settlements on the Ripple network happen using a system called Earthport, which has nothing to do with the XRP tokens, right? So it doesn't necessarily, the demand doesn't correlate back to the tokens. Because the Ivy tokens are used for every settlement, it means that as more and more financial institutions come on board, and we're pleased to be able to say that we have our first financial institution who has agreed to sign up for a pilot program, and they're a multi-billion-dollar bank over in the US. As more and more of these come on board, it will drive demand in the token. So if our near medium-term target is to become an equal to Ripple in terms of the number of banks, I think that we've got a really good shot. In addition to the fact there's 7,000 banks in the US, so it's not like that we're trying to go into a market that has overwhelming market share like Uber and trying to crack that. Nobody's really got the dominant market share yet, so we have a chance to rapidly get to where we need to be.
What's the potential for IvyKoin? Well, if you look at Ripple's current market cap of $40 billion, if they were to secure 10% market share from Ripple. They're trying to raise $90 million during this pre-sale and ICO process. If they secure 10% of that market share, that will be a 44 times growth, which is a pretty good return if they hit that target. When I've reviewed the team members, they're very banking and financial focused. They didn't seem to promote their tech expertise as much. The reasoning behind that is that they feel that they need to be able to engage with the financial institutions, and that is where they want to put their money into building that network.
The doors have been flung wide open, and in some cases we're speaking to some very large global banks, and they've said this is the first time that we are entertaining a cryptocurrency-based project, and the reason is that this is framing it to us as an opportunity instead of a threat. This is helping us to do our job better, as opposed to a lot of other currencies or projects out there that are just talking about destroying banks and the financial institution.
They think that they can have a viable product within 6 months, which is very ambitious. So if it does work out in 6 months, it could be a great investment, but it's a big if. We didn't see any demos during this presentation.
We're able to get there to minimum viable product in the next 6 months, and that's because of this business is leveraging intellectual property and work that Change Financial has done over years. It's leveraging intellectual property and work that Mike and Bob have been doing for many years.
I did get asked to turn my camera off after the initial presentation when they went into some tech stuff and the Q&A session. But I did ask them the question, with a coin as an investor, you want to invest in something that has potential to grow. But as a transfer medium, you want a coin that is stable. How are they going to manage that process? So they said that the IvyKoin, which is what the token that you would buy, that is likely to grow, but they can manage that by changing the amount of IvyKoin needed to do a transaction. So the process, from how it was explained to me, was that you purchase an IvyKoin, you set up the transaction within institution to institution, and that IvyKoin is then converted to a utility token that holds all the KYT information, is then sent to the recipient to review the KYT information and approve, and then once it's approved, that token is then converted either back to IvyKoin, if that's the agreed currency, or another currency of their choice. It makes me wonder how essential the IvyKoin is in this process.
So there will be 1.5 billion tokens in total pre-mined, and it's estimated that there will be 55 to 60% of those tokens in circulating supply at the end of this token generation event.
The process for this pre-sale is to register your interest on a website with a form, and then put your bid in on how much money you want to bid for this pre-sale. My thoughts around this are that it's probably skewed towards large investors and financial institutions, and it freezes out mums and dads and everyday people like myself and a lot of my viewers.
So what IvyKoin is doing a non-traditional approach to a token generation event. What I mean by that is it's not a big song and dance public ICO. It's a private placement. We call it a pre-sale to a token generation event. And happy to chat with anybody who's interested after the presentation about why, but the summary is it's a lower risk way to get the tokens out there into the market. From a regulatory standpoint, where the regulators are focusing, this was deemed to be a lower risk way for the company to approach this token generation event.
What are my thoughts on this approach? I don't really like it. I would have preferred them to have a first come, first served approach, and where you can send them your coins and be secured a stake in IvyKoin. So if they make their $90 million in this pre-ICO round, I doubt they'll go to a full ICO, so most of us will likely miss out. After I did the video footage, I did get an email from IvyKoin saying IvyKoin pre-sale has closed successfully. They were heavily oversubscribed. They want to allocate by scaling the high bids and balloting remaining bidders down to a minimum cutoff. So what that says to me is that potentially smaller bids will be able to be honoured and be given coins. So fingers crossed for that. And they're also looking at raising by $20 million their fundraising targets. So interesting times. So there you have it, guys, the IvyKoin ICO Pre-sale rundown. Now, would I actually invest in this coin? I did register and put a small bid in, but I don't think I'll get a look in being a small investor. So we'll see how that turns out. I did ask their managing member, Shilkin, for an interview. Haven't heard from him since, so hopefully I do get a call and I get an interview and I can share more insights about IvyKoin with you guys. If you'd like to know more about IvyKoin or any other coin or crypto, please put a comment down below and I'd love to make another video for you. And remember to click like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. This is Aussie Ty and you're watching A Crypto Current Affair.
Click like and subscribe and join me on this crypto current affair.
Just because it's double doesn't mean it's a bubble.